Hey everybody, it's Anna J. Wellner on the Bookish Nook, part of the Author Library Network. And with me today, I am thrilled to have Stephen Spence, the author of Money, Plain and Simple. Stephen, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you.
Oh, no, it's an honor to be here with you, Anna.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me about your book. Now, wow, where to begin? So, the gold standard, the silver standard, is there really gold in Fort Knox? Will cryptocurrency take over the world? Take us through it all.
Oh, gosh. So, yeah, where to start? So, I'm going to start at not the very beginning, but what I want to say is people like me don't have time to read and don't have time to read charts, don't have time to learn about this stuff. And so I wrote a plain and simple book. And of everything I've learned and been exposed to that just blew my mind, and I want to share it with everybody. So, and what I found is, I heard a quote this week, and I'm going to read it. I have it right here. It's from a guy named Norm Franz, and I don't know much about him, but I heard this quote, and it said, "Gold is the money of kings, silver is the money of gentlemen, and and barter is the money of peasants, and debt is the money of slaves." And one of the things I've learned is that the monetary system that we all live in worldwide is a debt-based system that is making us all slaves, even though that we don't know that, So I don't know. So we're indebted to the banking system. So now I didn't know that, and it was like so I wanted to write, I know people don't have time to read, so I wrote a short book, hit the highlights, and then go from there if you want to know more. But it's stuff that everybody should know in this world, not in the US, but in the world of the money system that we're in.
So, as far as the economy now is concerned, what can you tell us about the finance, the different kinds of currencies that exist today in the world that are available for use? We all have our own banks. Unfortunately, there is nothing that we can do right now in this day and age. A few people are able to go, and pay with cash at some of these convenience stores where they will do bill pay. But for the most of us, myself included, I have everything, online. I don't get anything in the mail. I very rarely check the mail because everything comes to my inbox, and that's how I pay all of my bills. So it's really become kind of a convenience factor for a lot of Americans, for a lot of people worldwide.
No, you're absolutely right. And if you look at things, how we're led to believe something, if there's something to go, say for instance, you're using cash and checks, whatever, and then all of a sudden you go digital, everybody freaks out, right? So you got to kind of train the populace to go. So you start doing this online stuff, right? You take your debit card and you buying gas. I remember I was doing this in the 90s. I was afraid to stick my card in the gas machine. I was like, what's happening here? But that was the transition for people so they don't get freaked out, So I bank online too, right? And so technically it's all digital. Right. And we're doing digital, but we're using dollars. So you can if you have digits on the screen, you should be able to go to the ATM and make a withdrawal in physical cash. So there will be that transition. But when you spoke about other countries' currencies, this was the thing is I don't know if you ever heard of the world reserve currency. And are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
All right, so let me blow your mind then. So the United States in 1944, I did a real quick history lesson in the book. In 1944 was the Bretton Woods Agreement. And all these nations after World War II got together because the United States came out victorious. We were the mighty nation on the planet. So everyone decided that we were going to have the world reserve currency, which was the dollar, which is
okay.
And it was tied to the gold in Fort Knox, and we were stewards, and then everyone else in the world with their central banks, they attached their money to our money. So they valued their money to our money, which was tied to the gold.
Gotcha.
So fast forward to 1971, there was a run on our gold, because it was always redeemable. That was the guarantee, to take any currency and redeem it for gold. Well, I think it was the Bank of England and maybe France. They were like, oh, well, we can get the United States gold because our importing and exporting wasn't balancing out, and they were making a run on our gold. So Nixon says, he's forced. He's like, they're taking all our gold. So he shut it down and he severed it. And then that was the birth of our fiat currency. So that fake money of the dollar is now fake, and it's not tied to the gold. And so now everything is still tied to the dollar, although other people's currency, but it's tied to fake, nothing. And so that's when I started. It's like, oh my gosh, this has been going on. And it was okay when you're a good steward, but now, I wrote this book towards the last part of last year, and I could see it coming. It was already happening with the pandemic, and all the spending was going on. It's like, where's this money coming from? Right? It's not coming from Fort Knox, and so they're just like churning out the print or adding the digits to the screen, however you want to say it. It was all trickery through bond sales and yada yada, the Fed, and then I'm like, well, how come the Fed has so much money? And then I realized the Fed's not the Fed. It's a Federal Reserve, but it's not federal. And that's what people don't understand. It's not part of the government, even though the government has their hands in it. And I write about that too. Yeah, look at you. I love your face right now. It's like,
yeah, this is new because federal is synonymous with the Federation of the United States, which is implicitly governmental and government run. So
let me ask you a quick question. Is Federal Express part of the government?
No, but that is a copy. That is a brand name.
Exactly, but
so it's a brand name.
In the beginning, it was perceived that was part of the post office.
Ah,
right? So they were able to, it's all deception. So it's
very clever branding on the part of the Federal Reserve.
Oh yeah, I mean, I did when I found out, because I remember in the Air Force in the 80s. That, this before the internet and all that stuff. And I was like, why do we have to borrow money from ourselves? Because they were talking about, oh, the Treasury has to get money from the Fed and and bounce around. I was like, that's like, to me, it's like you're wearing the same pair of pants. You're just moving the money out of one pocket to the other. That's the way I was like, it doesn't make sense. But I didn't have the resources to learn this stuff. And that's just one of those questions I banked for, gosh, 20, 30 years. I have to give my age away, but yeah, it's just something, and then it all makes sense now, So anyway, that's what this book does, is it leads you to see the deceptions, and we're just living it and we're going along with it. So now today, I don't know if you've been following the news just recently, is they're talking about $1 trillion platinum coin. Have you heard that talk in the news?
No, I haven't.
So this is
$1 trillion coin or a trillium?
Trillion, like
trillion.
Billion, trillion. So they have this goofy law that they wrote a long time ago that if the Treasury needed to, they can mint because see, the Treasury can mint coin, they can't mint dollars. So they can mint a platinum coin, which is about, at the time, $996, just under $1,000 per coin. They can mint it for $1 trillion and give it to the Fed for deposit. I'm like, how does that work? But it's to, we were coming up against this debt ceiling crisis, right? Again, for this, I think this was the 78th time, I'm not sure, 77, 78th time. And all they did was kick the can down the road, right? For a few, 6, 8 weeks, something like that. So now, but they were talking about minting this coin to pay their debts. I'm like, that doesn't, anyway,
so basically what I'm gleaning from this is that whether or not it actually has that fixed value, it's not the fixed value of the coin itself, but it's whatever value is ascribed to it. So I can give you this can and say, this is a $1 trillion can, and people are to associate the value. So it kind of goes back to money versus value. So money does not necessarily equate value. And you learn that in real estate, because whenever someone says, well, someone's only offering to pay $300,000 for my house, and it's valued at $357,000 because that's what I pay taxes on. But value is the intrinsic amount of money that someone is willing to spend on your home. So value is really subjective to whoever is.
And I didn't say this in the very beginning. I'm definitely not an economist and I'm not a financial advisor. So anything I say, you should back it up. And that's what I talk about in the book. But what you're saying now is what I understand to be counterparty risk. So the value of whatever I have, that can, the property, whatever it is, I think it's worth something, but it's only worth what somebody's willing to give me for it.
Exactly.
Right. So, so that's, and I get into that. The only reason why I know about this is because when I studied the value of gold and silver and Bitcoin, or, say cryptocurrency, we'll say the main, I call them this, like you said, all the primary coins, I think it's called. And then you have the altcoins, and the primary coins, they have a value and there's no counterparty risk per se. And same thing with gold and silver. It's always has a value, and so I try to look at things like anything that could be paper, could be caught on fire and turn into ashes, like stocks and bonds and this and that. I look at those things and because property never burned down. You can burn down a house on a property or a building,
but land,
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
And that's one of the things that I love is that people always, they say, what's the safest investment? Say if I won $1 million, what should I do? And I always say land. And they're like, no, you buy a whole bunch of houses and you rent them out and you generate revenue that way. And then I said, yeah, but then you run into economic obsolescence. I said, you run into functional obsolescence. I said, eventually those houses are not going to retain the value 15, 20 years down the road. And then you're stuck with something that has no intrinsic value. But what do you have left? The land. And so that's why I always say, especially in Texas, because not only do I happen to have land, but mineral rights that go with the land, which you can't find anymore. If you own land in Texas, do not sell your mineral rights.
Yes, I learned about that from my good friend. He lives in Dallas, and I was like, "What's this?" Because he was looking at buying some land. He says, "But I don't get the mineral rights." And I said, "What does that mean?" And he explained it to me, and then I looked it up some more, and I'm like, "That's theft, in my opinion." You can come onto my land and drill for oil, really, without. That's crazy.
Well, the really cool thing is that generationally, there's land in my family that is in East Texas on the Woodbine Shale that we, still own the mineral rights. Now, the land has long since been divided and parceled out and sold off, and there are houses, on some of this land, but it's still available for lease by big oil and gas companies. Whether or not there's a house on it or not, they can still lease the mineral rights. So we're still generating revenue, even though we don't own the land anymore. We own what's under the land.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've never heard of that until just a few years ago. It's good and bad. It's you got to be smart, right?
Right.
Education. So
speaking about Bitcoin, what's your take? I would love to know.
So I do.
And crypto.
Crypto altogether, I try to get into it when the big rush of 2017, and it hit 20,000 or just over 20,000, and my bank wouldn't let me do it, so I just kind of I got out of it, and then I just kind of learned about it. I took some classes and stuff because it is the wave of the future, and anybody I speak with personally, I tell them, I said, just buy $100, and just start playing with it just to get used to it because it's the future. It really is. And especially if you're an old guy like me or older, these are hard things it's hard to navigate your phone, it's
hard to conceptualize that mind, that mining data can actually translate into the value of something like an imaginary, basically, coin. Right. Bitcoin is, you can actually purchase a coin. It's, but
Yeah. That's
I mean, you can.
yeah. Don't do that if you're thinking you're vesting that.
But yeah, essentially it is imaginary, funds that are being mined from data sources, and then you're collecting that, and it's a similar structure to the stock market in that, the prices fluctuate based on supply and demand and other, factors, just like stocks in the stock market.
Right. So in the book, I covered going digital is the chapter, and I talked about, you can go into all kinds of things because, as you know, there's thousands of altcoins that you can get into. And what I've learned is that not all of them are safe bets, and you can have the pipe dream of buying something at 0.000001 cent.
It's just like penny stocks,
exactly. And then hope that it doubles, and you double your money. So, and people are doing that. And then what it is, some of them are, it's like they call them a pump and dump, right? So they pump these stocks up or these coins up, and then they pull it out. And then next thing you know, it's like, where'd my money go? So I don't encourage anyone to get into it without doing something, some research about it. But the primary coins, the altcoin, the Ethereum, the Litecoin, those are pretty much, they're not all the same, but they're here to stay, I believe. They've got a proven track record, and so I circled into Bitcoin, and I talked about it because just to get an idea of what it is, and so
and educate people, because not a lot of people are well versed in cryptocurrency, and if they are, the only one that they have heard of is most likely Bitcoin.
Yeah, and they say, oh, it's for those young kids, those old whippersnappers. But no, but the Bitcoin is that's one I know the most about, and so I wrote about that one, and I talked about how you mine, because I know when I talked about just mining it, right? And my first book editor, she was a book coach, and she said, what does this mining mean? You got to dig Bitcoin up? I'm like, oh. So I got to work on it. But if you don't know, you don't know,
Right.
And so I was like, wow, I got to take this down I got to keep this simple, because now I just confused her on mining. Right. Anyway, so we attacked that, and so I made it simplified, and I gave it a really high level proof of work and how it's done through computer code, the limitations, like there's only 21 million coins, and they're not all made yet. And that's what gives it its scarcity, if you will, or its limit. So it can't be printed like fiat currency is being done, right? But you also give what all my courses that I took on this was also, and this was back in 2018. Don't invest what you're not willing to lose.
I think that's, absolutely. And I mean, that's for that goes for anybody, whether it's the stock market, whether it's bonds, whether it's Bitcoin. If you're not willing to lose it, don't stake it. That's right. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, you cannot, there is no ability, when you were talking about pumping and dumping and raising and lowering the price of these altcoins, as we were talking, you don't have the ability to short cryptocurrency the same way that you do with stocks.
Well, see, I'm going to disagree with you, because
is that true or not? Because I'm curious.
Well, like I said, I don't do it, but I have heard of people getting onto Robinhood, and they're able to buy the ETF of Bitcoin, and they're able to buy the ETF and so now you're not buying the thing, you're gambling on, through the exchange traded funds or futures. And so now you're gambling on whether it goes up or down. So yes, you can short it in that manner, but not through the coin itself. I could be wrong on that. Again, I'm not an economist, and so the shorting thing just confuses me. I know what it means, and I know how it works. It's just, and I should short, because everything I pick, I lose. So, I should figure that out. But anyway, so Bitcoin, and recently, I don't know if you've been buying, but I set myself up for every 2-week purchase. and I use Coinbase, not to promote them or anything, but I use Coinbase and I have it set up.
Not that we're sponsored by Coinbase.
No, but I set up an automatic withdrawal, and usually in the past it was on the 1st and the 15th, and then I would get a withdrawal like 4 o'clock in the morning before I wake up, and I say, "Oh, you got more Bitcoin," which isn't a lot. But then I started noticing recently that the purchase didn't happen, and I'm like, "Well, why didn't it happen?" So I started digging around, and then the next day it happens and the coin went up. I'm like, dang you, why didn't you buy it when you're supposed to buy it? Because now I'm buying it at 57,000 instead of 53,000, whatever. And it's like, what I found out is there's a shortage of Bitcoin now. It's all bought up and you got to wait for somebody to sell it and you're buying it at market. So that's, yeah, you
so
just
it's kind of hit. So it's kind of leveled out on that availability.
Well, you got the whales coming in with the investors because, like you said, Elon Musk purchased. I don't know how much he bought. I know it was a lot. I forgot, but it was
like 2 billion or 200 million, something like that. It was a lot.
Yeah, nothing I could ever come up with.
No.
But then you got other gosh, well, failing his name right now. Tudor Jones, I think his name is Paul Tudor Jones. He did like a multi-billion-dollar purchase as well, and they're gobbling up all the Bitcoin because there's only 21 million, and that's so the price doesn't really reflect yet, I guess, the shortages. But in there, I think I'm just guessing these numbers. I think there's about 2 million left to make. I think. Okay. Somewhere around there. So they're probably at 19 million, and then they're saying there's X amount of millions that have been lost because I lost my keys and or forgot my key and stuff like that. So there's people that, so they're saying there's all this that's not even in circulation because it's sitting on somebody's wallet they can't access. So you have that problem too. That's why you don't get heavily into it until you know what you're doing.
Right. Exactly. Definitely don't put all your eggs in one basket. So, well, this has been such an amazing conversation and fun, actually, for me to learn more about all of this. So, if there was one piece of advice that you want readers to take away from this book, or one piece of advice that you have for people out there right now when it comes to the economy and when it comes to finances, what would that be? Tough question, I know.
No, it really, that's the whole reason. That's the whole book. You just summed it up for me. What I want to say is like, we are, like I said in the beginning, we are, money is debt and debt is for slaves. So once you figure that out, there's like this, I feel like there's just this squeeze on the planet right now, and we're seeing it through inflation, we're seeing it through shortages, we're seeing it through overspending, we're seeing all these things that I'm not saying I was a prophet because I learned from other people, right? But I saw this coming, and so I started preparing. And it's not too late to prepare, but a lot of people are going to get hurt. So, and I explain why. For example, like what is inflation? And I explain it in a simple way. If I have $1 in the whole world and I have 50 cents of that, I have 50% of the thing. But if I had another dollar into the system and I still have 50 cents, my value of that 50 cents went down to a quarter, So in a simplistic term, that's what's happening when they inject money into the system. So we all lose, even though it seems great for the moment. And who doesn't want free money? I do, but it also creates so much damage, and people don't understand that, and they don't understand the concepts of money. I talk about the velocity of money and how that multiplies money, and how it's important that we're, the system we're in, and how we got to spend. So I want people to open their eyes to the what we're in, to see the shackles that we're wearing, and figure out, you got to know that you're wearing shackles to get them off. And then I want you to in the very last chapter, it's like, what do you do now? Right. And so I listed like all the beginning things that people can go to if they want to learn more. Because, if I say go buy silver and gold, and then I can have someone tell me, oh, you're crazy, you can't eat gold, blah, blah, blah. You know, so, and you're right. So it's not a one size fit all, but you should know what you're in. And we all work, we all save, we all invest. Your 401k is at risk. You know, you should know these things, right? So, you know, one of the things that woke me up too, and I hope I'm not going too long, but when you carry a 401k, right, and you have people managing your money, most people, that's the retirement plan. That's the last part of their life. That's what's going to carry them to death. I hate to say be morbid, but that's the plan, right?
Right.
But so who's managing your money, and who's carrying the risk? And I guarantee you, if the market crashes, they're going to get their share out of it, and you're going to be holding the bag. And you'll be looking at it and you're like, where's my money? And now you're 85 years old and you're like, I can't go back and get a job, you know? So people don't think like that anymore. And they just have so much trust because this is so complicated, but it's not. And so the purpose of the book was to demystify all this stuff that we're in. It's like I said, I kept it simple. So it's like you can power through this a chapter a night. One chapter is 2 pages. So and the feedback I'm getting on the book is like, one guy said, I fear for his life because I'm exposing, you know, the system. But I kind of laugh because he doesn't know. But I woke him up, and I feel good about that. You know, that people are aware of the environment that they're in, and so that's my piece of advice is read the book, save your life. Take action, and you're going to be good, you know, because it's messy now. I heard a stat today, the gasoline, people are not really squawking about it, but it's gone up 40% this year. 40%. What if everything goes up 40%? You know, think of the people that are you know, working low wage jobs. You know, nothing against them, but who are we hurting here? You know, the rich people are not getting hurt. It's all of us workers, and we're just going along because we don't know. And we're actually in.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because although the price of oil has, you know, gone up, you haven't seen, especially here, I'm speaking as a native Texan, where the oil and gas industry is quite rich. Here, you're not seeing where we were in 2019. We were, you know, doing layoffs. I was part of that layoff, and we're not seeing the rehiring that we were, and we're not seeing the hiring freezes lift. So although gas has rebounded and oil prices have rebounded, the business sector that is attached to that has not necessarily rebounded itself yet. And those gas prices, I don't know if anyone remembers, you know, well, I want to say like 5-6 years ago, but the price of orange juice went up, the price of bread went up, the price of everything went up whenever gas was at its peak. And they were saying, well, you know, transportation costs. And it was something that was just to be accepted as inflation. And once transportation costs, the way it was presented, once transportation costs were back to a normalized level, then we all expected orange juice to go back to $1.99. It's still $2.49, $2.99, you know, $3.19. You know, it just keeps going up. And so it doesn't ever settle back to where it used to be. Once it reaches that point of inflation, then it just kind of sticks there.
Yep. And that's in the book too. I talk about stagflation, inflation, deflation, all that stuff happens, and why. You know, so the bottom line is, my dream world would be to I don't know if you know who Ron Paul is. He was a presidential candidate. Yeah. So he's such an idol of mine. And he calls for honest money. And you know, Bitcoin, decentralized currency, is honest money. Gold and silver is honest money. So it's actually money, right, and not currency. So my dream would see that we don't allow this anymore with this frivolous spending and making up money and yada yada yada, and hold these people accountable, because they're really hurting us. They're not helping us, they're hurting us. And that's what I want people to see, is that they have enslaved us to their system, and we are their servants, you know. Sorry.
Well, it's definitely an eye-opening message in this book that you deliver, and I can only imagine what lies within the pages after just talking to you for the short time that we have today. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing with all of us the knowledge that you have.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Can I share one more thing?
Yes, no, absolutely.
I-
Everybody, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on great upcoming content. And stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Awesome.